What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here at the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts on the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, Tad the Side. And Tad, rolling right along here, we're getting into this is going to be an interesting episode because I think this is, would you say this is the deepest position group in this year's draft class? I'd probably say it is.
Ooh, that is a good question. Because offensive tackle is good, but it's pretty top heavy.
Yeah.
Maybe corner. Corner is like the only competition there.
Corner's got some good ones. I think I have to watch a lot of tape of some of the later guys, but just like I feel like just very much you could go like 1 through 20. There's a lot of good content. A lot of good contributors at this position. That's the wide receiver position. I think like if you need a wide receiver this year, you can sort of get good value even on day 3, I think.
You know what's another weird position too, and we're getting another conversation, but is tight end. Obviously you have like Brock Bowers up here for our podcast listeners. It's like way up there, and then you have a pretty significant drop in talent after that. But after that initial drop in talent, it plateaus pretty well. Like there are a lot of interesting guys at tight end too. So like it kind of depends on how do you define deep. So let's have a philosophical discussion on how do you define deep, Amir.
That's not happening today at all. But I do agree with you with tight end. Like, I mean, I think like Brock Bowers in a class by himself. And then after that, it's just like, yeah, you got a lot of different tight ends that offer a lot of different skill sets to your respective offense. And so, yeah, like you said, I think that's where the discussion happens as far as like, okay, how do you separate these guys then after Brock Bowers goes? So it's very fair.
Right. That's also very similar to how this wide receiver class is because you have that top tier level of talent. And then after that, you have a pretty, in my opinion, a pretty significant drop. It's all like good guys, but they all have very significant kind of holes in their game.
Yeah, and we'll get into all of that for sure. And I mean, it should be a very good episode overall because, yeah, there's a lot of content that we can get into with the wide receiver position for sure. And guys, as always, we want to give a shout out to our great sponsors at Underdog Fantasy because, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things that could be going on right here. I've been bringing it up the last couple of weeks of episodes now. Like, this is a good time to be a sports fan because, I mean, like, the NBA playoffs are heating up. Like, I mean, that should be coming around in just a couple of weeks. The play-in tournament, we obviously got March Madness happening right now. We got the final weekend. We got the final weekend for both the men's and the women's side. We got baseball in full swing of action. We just had opening last weekend, so we got that going on right now. We got NHL hockey going on right now.
Damn it, Blues.
We got WrestleMania happening this weekend as well, Tad. So I'm pretty sure you got some underdog bets for WrestleMania as well. So I mean,
is Steve Austin still a thing?
I guess technically he is still a thing, but he is no longer wrestling anymore. So
damn it, Stone Cold!
Never damn it, Stone Cold. I mean, that guy is still a legend.
He could kill me with his pinky.
Oh, he easily could. But yeah, WrestleMania 40 happening in Philadelphia this weekend. So I'm pretty sure we got some underdog bets there. But I mean, guys, get in on the action because, yeah, whatever you feel comfortable betting in, all you got to do is make 2 to 5 different prop bet picks. The more picks you make, the more potential money you can win. And I mean, guys, Underdog wants you to get into the action. They gave us a great promo code to share with you. Double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500 using our promo code DESAI, DESAI. You can double up on that initial deposit, as mentioned, on that first one, just the initial one of $10 or more, up to $500. So hypothetically, if you were to put in that max $500 on your first deposit, Underdog will match that dollar for dollar, and you can bet with $1,000 on their platform. You can use the website. You can use their great mobile apps. I mean, it's just a really intuitive website, really easy to navigate compared to some other betting sites that use a very similar concept. This one is a little bit better, I think, than some of those other ones for sure. So, I mean, guys, get into the action. Use that promo code DESAI, DESAI, and double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500 on Underdog's fantasy platform. So, Tad, I mean, let's just sort of, get into this. Like you're sort of talking about, like, at the tight end position, you're talking about like Brock Bowers, and then everybody else.
Might as well be Powers at this point.
Honestly, like, I mean, that's sort of what it is. But at the wide receiver position, there's a lot of debate as far as like, okay, Marvin Harrison Jr. is at the top, but then besides him, is there anybody else that you would label as like, you know, the top tier wide receiver in this year's draft class? There is a little debate as far as like how many guys are included in that top tier. Clearly it's Marvin Harrison Jr., but just who else besides them, if there's anybody else besides him. So let's start the conversation there. Like, is there anybody else that you think could be in that same tier as Marvin Harrison Jr. in this year's draft class?
In his tier, no.
Okay.
He's in a tier of his own. It's 1A and then 2. Like it's just it's one of those things that Marvin Harrison. I've been a proponent of his since like December, where I've said the Bears should hold on to Justin Fields to solely just to take Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, this guy is the next best thing. I'm convinced of that. He is the next GOAT. He's the next Randy Moss. And I will absolutely stand by that take.
Okay.
I don't mean
That's
to play
high praise.
I don't mean to play style, but I mean like he is going to be that level of player. And I 100% believe that, especially in today's NFL, because I see, it's funny reading all the scouting reports on Marvin Harrison Jr., where they're just trying to find negatives. He's kind of skinny. He's small, I guess. And it's just like, okay, but like that's kind of, what he reminds me of? And this is going to be a very weird comparison because you're like, really? You just say he's going to be a GOAT, but you compare him to this guy? I think he's going to be Chris Olave on steroids. They have and yes, I know they went to the same school, and that's probably why, but they had the same play style. But Olave's had a very successful NFL career. Now imagine that, plus like, I don't know, throw in like CeeDee Lamb's production.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I think you have a very similar play style between both those players. Like, mesh those two players together. Who wouldn't want that? Chris Olave plus CeeDee Lamb. So he's in Marvin Harrison Jr. is in a tier of his own. I really hope this sounds terrible, but part of me actually means this. I really hope a Laramie Tunsil situation happens and he can go to his dad's team.
Why would you say that?
Because he can go to his dad's team. He could be 88.
He could.
And that Colts blue. It would look beautiful, and everyone would love it. And
maybe on his second contract.
Laramie Tunsil turned out fine. That guy just got paid like $80 million. He's fine.
And he's not on a very contending team at Houston for sure. So
I hear those gas masks are great, Marvin. That's all I'm saying. I hear. I know nothing about it. But so Marvin Harrison Jr. is in a tier of his own. In terms of like, when do we really like see that kind of real dip in talent? I think it happens after 3 receivers. And I think those 3 receivers are going to go quick. I think it is Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, not particularly in this order, because if you want to see the order, I really think these receivers are in. Check out those social. Oh my God, I nailed it. That was awesome. Is this what you feel like all the time?
I guess so. I think it just worked out for you.
I wasted it there, but whatever.
I know.
Check out those socials below. They're scrolling right across the bottom of the screen right now. And for our audio listeners, it is Twitter at EmergeDecide23, at TadDecide94, at the Decide Guys, both on Twitter and Instagram. So be sure to check that out, because we will be dropping our top 10 wide receiver rankings alongside this episode. So I'm not saying this is an order, but I think you go from, it could be, gotta check it out. Find out. But in my opinion, it's Harrison Jr., Odunze, Naibers, and then you have that drop off. It's just those 3. Those 3 are the only ones belonging in the top 12. And I will tell you this. And I even mocked him inside the top 12 in my last mock draft, because that's what I think will happen, not what I think should happen. Because I think what should happen drafts are, especially at this point of the year, just kind of stupid. Brian Thomas Jr., I don't get a love for this guy. I watched so much of him because I know people are going to be screaming at me of like, what about him? Because he's being mocked in the top 15 relentlessly. And I'll admit, before, the draft season really got into gear, I didn't watch any of his tape. And because I had him ranked, from what I knew, as a high second rounder, low first rounder. So the more I saw him, mocked as a high first rounder, I was like, okay, clearly there's something I'm missing. And so I watched his tape, and I gotta say, he's not that special. I don't see the top 12 hype for him. And it was so funny. So first off, I have to say, my first initial complaint about him, that guy catches more footballs with his body than I did in high school. And the only reason I did it in high school, it is saying a lot because I was so unathletic, I had no hands. So the only way I could catch a ball was to pray to God that the ball would hit me in the chest and I could trap it in time for it to count as a catch. By the way, I broke my back playing high school football. That's how good I was. So anyway, point being is like he uses his body for way too many catches. He does it, and this is a funny thing. So I kept watching him more and more. I'm like, I have to be missing something. There has to be something I'm missing. So I went and started reading these scouting reports on him. And I swear to God, the top 4 scouting reports, and people look him up right now, Brian Thomas Jr. scouting reports, all of them say, oh, he's more of a stretch guy in the NFL, a stretch the field guy, because he did run a 4.33 at the combine, and he is very fast. I'll give him that. Why is he a stretch guy? He did not play like one. LSU didn't utilize him as one. They utilized him on short sticks like at least half of his routes during this past season. And because, trust me, I watched a video I have seen. It took me a very long time. I watched every single target this man has taken in the past season.
Wow. Okay.
I know what I'm talking about. It was brutal. But point being is like he can't beat press coverage. If you're going to be a stretch guy, you got to know how to get off press coverage. He's fast as fuck. Don't get me wrong. Like there was one awesome play. God damn, I'm trying to remember who. It was against one of their ACC opponents where he catches it, turns around. He does like a hockey spin move, a very slow spin move type of thing, and then busts out for like a 60-yard touchdown. It was great. So when he gets in the open field, that speed is on display. But for some reason, when he's running his routes, I think it's because of his route running. It's just not there. He's fine. He's good. He has the exact same grade I had him at. He's a low first rounder. But that's what I mean is like, I think he's just getting overhyped because Jane Daniels is obviously getting deserved top 10 hype. Malik Naibers is getting deserved top 10 hype. But I think so many people are watching them. They're also, it's kind of like Isaiah Davis with you, and you were watching, was Tucker Kraft?
Yeah, Tucker Kraft, yeah.
It's exactly like that, where I feel like a bunch of scouts were just watching LSU tape, watching Jaden and Malik, and all of a sudden like, this guy's pretty good. And now all of a sudden he's going to be like, Jets to number 10. And he should not be a top 10 pick. Absolutely not. So, but that's what I mean is like the 4th best receiver, which feels pretty universal. Spoiler alert, he's probably going to finish 4 on my top 10 list. It's a huge drop off in my opinion. So it's just, it's one of those things. It's Harrison Jr., Naibers, Odunze, 50 feet of crap. And then I had to throw that reference in. Before people yell at me, I'm not saying they're bad, but it just feels like a pretty significant drop off of like instant contributor to, okay, this guy could come along nicely.
I appreciate the extended analysis when we're only asking about top tier receivers, and you went to this big spiel about Brian Thomas Jr., which clearly you have some sort of issue against this guy. So that's fine. That's fine. Let's save that for the next segment.
What is the opposite? What is the opposite of draft darling?
Like, I don't know, draft latchkey kid. Like, I mean, that's
latchkey kid. I'm gonna find a good term. All right, that's my homework assignment for the podcast.
But yeah, I mean, I think you laid it out. I think you laid it out perfectly. I think it's like, Harrison, Odunze, and Malik Naibers are going to be in that top level of receivers that are probably going to go. I know you say top 12, but there's a very good chance that they could all be gone in the top 10 as well. Like, I think they have that level of talent. I think I'm leaning more towards your opinion, where it's like they probably will go to the top 12 because we'll have trades obviously for quarterbacks up into the top 10. So they'll probably slide a little bit lower. So yeah, top 12 seems reasonable. But I think what I'm saying is just that the talent level leads to them, all 3 of them being top 10 picks. Now, I do agree with you. Once you get to Brian Thomas Jr. and you get to some of the other guys, that's where that separation happens. So it's like you got Marvin Harrison Jr., then you got Odunze and Malik Naibers, and then tier 3 is when you get the next set of guys. But yeah, I really just have nothing to argue with you against you there, because it's like I 100% agree that those 3 guys are at the top tier. But I think this is where we could transition into the conversation here, because I mean, you're sort of saying here that Brian Thomas Jr. should not be a top 12 pick, but I mean, a lot of people are sort of mocking him to be that way. But I still think that regardless of whether you view him as a top 12 pick, whether you view him as a top 15 pick, whether you don't even view him as a first round pick, you're saying fringe second rounder, I still think he's going to go in the first round. And
agree.
Ted, I think this
right.
is a good time to bring up this question. Is sort of like the good, transition here, going for the top tier receivers to now discussing how many first round wide receivers are we going to get? Because I mean, pretty sure it's a lock that we got Harrison Jr., we got Malik Naibers, and we got Rome Odunze. 100% they're going to be first round wide receivers. After that, I still think that, like I said, I like Brian Thomas Jr. to be in the first round. I don't, like I said, I still need to watch a little bit more tape. I did not watch every target that he got like you did. I still need to go into a little bit here.
It's a long watch, let me tell you.
But I still think that because of just, having a deep class here, like I said, playing in an LSU offense where they were very, had a vertical attack, him playing with Malik Naibers and being able to sort of take off, whatever Malik Naibers was getting double upped on, that it's like taking sort of advantage of that, playing with a Heisman winning quarterback at Jay Dales. Like naturally, like you said, scouts are going to be looking, it's like, oh, well, this guy's actually pretty good too. And he was able to make Jay Daniels have the Heisman winning season that he had. So it's like, I think naturally, you're going to see him go in the first round too. So I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure that he's probably going to go in the first round as well. The bigger question then becomes is that I could see 5 receivers, probably, I'd say 90% sure that I got 5 receivers going in the first round. The real question that I have is just whether we're going to get a 6th. Because it's like, if you were to give me like an over and under, which I'm pretty sure our good friends at Underdog Fantasy,
that's going to be interesting. Here,
that's the thing. So it's our good friends at Underdog Fantasy.
It's going to be 5.5. They're going to set it at 5.5.
Exactly. If it's 5.5, that is where I really have to struggle to really think. That's like, okay, I could see 5, but can I see a 6 going in there? Because like you got guys at the bottom of the first round that potentially could be some of those like, 5th year option guys. So it's like, Lad McConkey is getting a lot of steam right now. So he's rising up the ranks. You obviously got both receivers out of Texas with Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. So it's like, are all 3 of those guys in contention to go at the bottom of the first round? And I mean, for me, I'm leaning towards yes. I think we got 6 receivers going in the first round. I think it's going to be those 6 guys. So I think it's going to be Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Naibers, Lad McConkey, Xavier Worthy, and Adonai Mitchell.
So maybe you could a pair of Texas receivers go in the first round.
I could see that happening because I think it's just purely because Xavier Worthy beat that 40-yard dash time at the combine. Somebody's going to view that and be like, you know what? We need the speed in our team. We want to do this. Is going to be a John Ross situation again. We're just like, they see that speed. He's going to go in the first round. Maybe he shouldn't be, in my eyes, based on the tape that I watched, but I could see somebody valuing that and him going in the first round. Maybe you see a guy like a Keon Coleman or a Troy Franklin maybe take one of those Texas receiver spots potentially, but I think both Texas receivers have a good shot of going in the first round. Right now, I'm saying that both of them will go in the first round, along with McConkey at the bottom of the first, but I'm going to pass it to you here. Like, do you agree with that assessment? Do you think it'll be 5? Do you think it'll be less? Like, I mean, or possibly more. Like, I think that's a little extreme to go more than, 6.5 or what that is. But I mean, hey, I'd love to hear your take on this.
No, I'm right there with you. Right now I have it at 6.
Interesting.
For me, I think Worthy slips out of the first round just because I think you were talking about Worthy at this point, but he ran a very quick 40 time and that will put him at the top of the second, but man, his tape is not good.
Yeah, I agree.
He needs a lot of work. It's kind of like what we were talking about is like Texas gets all these big time edge rushers and like they get drafted higher than they should because they went to Texas. Like big school bias is a very real thing. Xavier Worthy needs a lot of work. And so I think ultimately, maybe I'm putting too much faith in NFL scouts because I said the exact same thing about Darius Hayward-Bay over a decade ago. How about that for making it feel old? Darius Hayward-Bay was over a decade ago. And he went, number 7, number 6, something like that?
I think 7 is accurate.
Yeah, I had him slated at the time as like a mid-second rounder. I was like, God damn it. And that's the first time I learned that Al Davis was an idiot.
The first time?
R.I.P. I was like 13 at the time. I was
That's fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair. I got
that was insane. I was like, I thought he was a legendary. Oh no, this man's a moron. I was like, oh wow, that's something. And now we're going through that with Jerry Jones. So I still have it at 6. So my locks for first round are Marvin Harrison Jr., Odunze, Naibers, Brian Thomas Jr., A.D. Mitchell. All those guys are locks. I think the most likely, and we agree on pretty much all points here, McConkey's the most likely to jump up there.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's the most likely to break that lock and make it 6. Now, I do like a guy that I'll talk about later. I don't think he could get there, but I do think that there will be in the late 20s, because you look at those late 20 teams, there are a lot of, and a very weird twist of irony, there is a lot of good teams that need wide receivers. So I think you're going to see, to give our fans a little bit of a background check here, and I know our our league mate, Jeremy, listens to this. So Jeremy, spoiler alert, Amir was in on the draft with us, but Amir and I were like, we were in a fantasy baseball draft together, and the entire time we were anticipating, when is that run on pitchers going to start? And we preemptively drafted a couple pitchers to prepare for that. And I think that's what's going to happen in the late 20s of this first round, is there's going to be a run on receivers. I bet you that 6 receivers will go in the first round. I'm with you on that. I bet you, I bet you 3 or 4 of them are going to go in the 20s.
Okay, I can see that happening. But I just want to really quick jump back here. So you said McConkey could be the 6th guy. So who's your 5th guy then? Because you locked up. You said
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, you got Harrison Jr. You said
Rome Odunze.
Yeah,
Malik Naibers.
Yeah,
Brian Thomas Jr.
Okay,
A.D. Mitchell. That's 5.
Okay, I guess that was just fine.
It's the rare time I do math correctly on the show.
Correctly.
All right, no, but let me tell you, one last point I have to make about this is I actually did do research, and that was also very painful, is wide receiver has become the 2nd most overdrafted position in football. And before people go like, oh man, I was hoping you were going to disagree with me on that. But so I went all the way back to the 2014 draft. Technically, I know it should be 2013, but whatever, shut up. I went all the way back to the 2014 draft to look at all the receivers who were drafted that people likely forgot about, because people forget just how many receivers were drafted in the first round that you just forget about. So are you ready for this list? Because it is truly incredible.
All right, let's go.
I'm going to walk you down memory lane, my friend, and you're going to love it. All right, so again, starting in 2014, Kelvin Benjamin.
I remember him being a first-round pick because of his size. So
he would have been so loud, and his size very quickly became the issue.
I know, yeah.
How about this? Maybe the most underratedly big draft bust of all time, Kevin White.
Oh yeah, Kevin White, 100%.
Now this one was controversial. I debated.
It was a debate between him and Amari Cooper, right? It was between who's going to be the better one.
You know why he got drafted that early? Because he was fast.
Yeah, no, I remember that, out of West Virginia, and it just unfortunately never materialized. And sorry to our good friends Matt and Jay, because he was drafted by the Bears, and it just didn't work out.
So bad. Not even as a returner. Not even as.
I know.
Now I debated leaving this guy. I put him on and off the list a couple times, but ultimately I was like, you know what? For where you were drafted, you busted. Devontae Parker.
Oh yeah, I did forget he was the first round. That was the 2nd round.
Yep. Okay. Just wait. These next couple of names are amazing.
Devontae Parker out of Louisville, right?
Louisville, not Louisville.
Louisville. Yeah, Louisville. You gotta say right. Right.
You don't want those. We don't want Rick Pitino coming after us. Bunch of hookers behind him. All right, this draft class made me crack up. Corey Coleman.
Really? Out of Baylor? Oh my God, I forgot he was a first rounder.
All right, do you remember the receiver that was taken after him?
That I don't remember.
I sure do. Josh Doxson.
Of course. I remember Josh Doxson was a first rounder, but yeah, I don't remember that Corey Coleman was as well.
Do you remember the receiver taken directly after Josh Doxson?
No.
Laquan Treadwell.
Ooh. I remember watching.
That was a rough class, man. That was a rough class.
At the combine, and I was like, "This guy could be a difference maker." And he was a difference maker in the bad way. He just never made a difference. That was the problem.
This is another guy I bounced on. Should he be on the list or not? He had one good year, admittedly. Before people start yelling at me, I know he had one really good year. After that, he sucks though. Corey Davis.
Yeah, unfortunately. And then he also took a brief, quote unquote retirement. And now he's coming back to the Jets. I don't know if you remember reading that report that dropped, I think a couple months ago. And so we'll see exactly how that plays out. But he had one great season. He was able to parlay that to a big contract with the Jets as a legend.
That man's agent deserves the biggest raise. All right, I got 2 more names for you, and they are fantastic. Are you ready? And this, by the way, this next name shows that I am not biased whatsoever. Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor. I remember that one.
He's carved out a solid, kind of special teams role for himself, but for a first-round receiver, come on.
I think just the biggest thing, that one's a little bit more memorable because the guy who went right after him was Justin Jefferson. So it's most people are like, the Eagles could have had Justin Jefferson. But they're like, now let's go with Reagor. And Now Jalen Rager's actually playing with Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. So.
Now this one was like I'm not even. So I left 2023 off the list, partially because I want to protect Quentin Johnson, my boy. He's okay. We may see. Jury's still out. But for all of them, jury's still out. It's unfair to call them any of them bust or anything. So I let. So this was 2022. I saw it. I'm not even joking. I almost literally did like the chef's kiss thing in the air because this is the perfect cap to the segment. 2-time Super Bowl champion, best athlete in the world, Kadarius Toney.
I know. I do.
Kadarius Toney.
I knew you were going there. It's just like, yeah, it's crazy to think that he was a first round pick.
So
I think he had the talent coming out of Florida. It just unfortunately
and
the injuries. It just like, yeah. It's
in general point of that whole list is like, while that may sound absurd of like what, six first round receivers, like that's almost a quarter of the league goes receiver in the first round. More of these guys go in the first round than you remember. It's just that most of these receivers wash out so fast that you forget they were. How many times did Amir say they're like, oh my God, I forgot about that guy, because they just what Corey Coleman's a great example of that. Of course,
yeah, I totally forgot about that one.
Yeah, and he went before any of the other names I picked in that year's draft class. And so my point being is there are so many receivers in the past decade that have been going, and like Amir kicked off this episode, this is a very deep receiver class. So honestly, it wouldn't shock me. It would surprise me. And I'm going to bring that up again. It wouldn't shock me, but it would surprise me if 7 or 8 receivers went in the first round. It really wouldn't take me back that much.
Yeah, honestly, like I was thinking back because like I was questioning your math, but then I was like, I'm realizing that maybe I'm putting 7 receivers in the first round.
That's why the top 10 is so hard.
It's going to be interesting, but I could legitimately say I think there's going to be 6 receivers taken in the first round. Like I said, I'm not sure which Texas receiver will go, but I very much think the lad McConkey will go in the first round. But you never know. You never know. I think it's just that 5th-year option, especially at a receiver position where it's like they still need a little bit of time to refine their technique and their route running, whatever it is, to get to the next level. Like, I think that's why some teams end up taking that investment in the first round. So it's like you have that 5th-year option that's like, okay, do we want to, pick up that 5th-year option or let this guy go after 4 years? So I think maybe that's why you also see a run at the receiver position. So we'll see if that happens this year. But we're sort of talking about like, Kadarius Toney landing with the New York Giants. Maybe that wasn't the best situation for him. He ended up getting traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. He sure didn't really do much for him, but like you said, he's now a 2-time Super Bowl champion. All you Immaculate Grid players, that's a good one to use for you guys to get some low percentages.
Yeah, that is a good one.
But Tad, let's discuss, this is a good transition point here because we're talking about, the number of first round receivers, just how deep a class this is. Like, I mean, literally, if you need a wide receiver, there's a good free agency class. Like, I mean, you got Mike Evans ended up re-signing. Obviously, you got Calvin Ridley. There's a lot of good receivers out there. But even so, if you missed out on some of those free agent wide receivers, there's a lot of good options here in the draft class here. So let's sort of, play a little bit of matchmaker. Just who do you think would be a good situation, or who's a good team to land a certain prospect that just like, if this were to happen, this is like, a match made in heaven?
Okay. So first off, I need to give a shout out because this is the same guy I used for Brian Thomas Jr.
Okay.
Adrian Sienko. I think I'm saying that right. Sienko.
Okay.
Shout out to you, man. You're the real MVP. Do you know why, Amir? This is why I'm comfortable giving another YouTube channel a shout out on our YouTube show.
As soon as you said the name, I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, I've seen a lot of his videos as well. So yes, he's got a lot of great tape out there for sure.
I watched every target that Roman Wilson had in 2023. Okay. He had Roman Wilson. He had Brian Thomas. That man is, I want to know how he gets his hand on that thing. And
I'm very curious. Yeah.
Adrian, if you're okay, I'm happy, but if you're not, just reach out to us. We're here for you because the amount of time that must have gone into that. But bottom line being is, nope, Roman Wilson was the other receiver I watched every 23, not catch, target.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I just had to say this. 1, I love Roman Wilson. 2, Jim Harbaugh can go fuck himself. Watching Michigan on tape is almost literal torture for a football scout. I know it's not a lie that Michigan runs a pro offense. They do. They run a pro-style offense. They run a pro-style offense from 2016, and it is the worst. I hate it. Roman Wilson had 789 yards. This guy didn't even sniff 1,000 yards. Yeah. I wrote, and I swear to God this is true. I will find the screenshots. I wrote an award-winning column back when I was a real journalist. Not saying this is not real journalism, but good God, this is real journalism. This country is going down in tubes. Point being is, It was called, I remember the title, Going Long is Long Gone. Oh, come on.
I like it.
No,
I like it.
okay.
No, I like it. I had to think about it. I was
Late
like,
reaction. Okay, yeah, exactly.
I like it. I like it.
Thank you. And the whole point was in the 2016 and 2018, the long pass was almost completely eliminated from the NFL. And I don't know if you remember back then, but I was actually completely on board that take because the NFL sucked. And I was like, all right, is football done? And that's why Mahomes is so heralded now, because that was when Mahomes was really coming on. And all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, the improviser long ball guy is back.
Yeah.
And then the NFL was like, oh, this works. That gets ratings. Okay, yeah, let's get rid of all pass interference and shit like that. Point being is the 2016 version of those offenses that sucked, that's what Michigan runs. And it's terrible. And here's the worst part is, and this is a very interesting trivia question I'm going to bring up probably during the draft. I think Michigan's going to have the most drafted players this year.
It's safe to say, for sure.
Which means I have to watch a bunch of Michigan players.
Yeah.
And I hate every moment of it because that pro offense was so, it was funny. My father has been a lifelong Michigan fan. I texted him after they won the national championship. I'm like, how are you feeling? And he was like, eh. I was like, really? And now I know why. It's because watching that offense all year, I'd be pretty mad too.
It's true.
Anyway, where's it going? Right.
It did produce a 1,600-yard rusher, though. In
I don't give a shit.
Okay.
This is the receiver episode. We're talking about through the
I know that, but I'm just saying. So it's like that's the benefit of a pro style offense. You have a very good running game.
The amount of pain I put up for our listeners.
Yeah.
Anyway, Roman Wilson's really good.
I do like him.
It was funny because watching his play style, so he's 5'11", 185, which really shocked me because I did not look up his measurables before I watched him play. And he was, I swear to God, this is true. He was really reminding me of a receiver. And because I had him in mind, because I knew I liked him before I started watching this. So I watched a little bit of him before the segment. And I was like, okay, and I had it fit in my head. And I swear, like, this connection just naturally made itself. He is a small receiver that plays about 4 inches taller, about 40 pounds heavier than he actually is. He's a pretty solid route runner. He is excellent in finding, the open space where there seemingly is no open space. And he can make some pretty good athletic catches. My man, he's the Steelers' replacement for Deontay Johnson.
I can see that.
This would be perfect. So, like I said, Roman, I think I said he was 5'10". He's actually 5'11", 185. Deontay Johnson is 5'10", 183. Mm-hmm. So you have a player who they just recently traded away the Carolina Panthers. By the way, Deontay Johnson, sneaky good fantasy play. And especially if they get T. Higgins. Woo, also in that offense, very interesting. But point being is, I think that Roman Wilson to the Steelers, and I understand that they're going, hey, no, that was Canada. That was Canada that made the most out of these, kind of smallish receivers. I think that Wilson is the kind of receiver that Arthur Smith, interesting hire, by the way, I think that's who he wanted Treylon Burks to be. Because that was the weird thing about the Titans drafting Treylon Burks. It was like, okay, we get you one a small little, like, kind of physical slot guy. Is Treylon Burks that guy? And he wasn't. I'm not saying Treylon Burks is bad, but they finally figured out how to utilize him. I think Arthur Smith sees Roman Wilson, goes, that's a physical little fast guy I want. So I think Roman Wilson and the Steelers, that could be a very dangerous play right there.
That's a good fit. And, the Steelers always find their way to sort of draft a, wide receiver that may not be a bigger name, but then all of a sudden they turn it to this guy's like, how did the Steelers keep?
That's what they did with George Pickens, Deontay Johnson. Like, it's just like, who's the next guy up?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it wouldn't surprise me if they land a guy like him way later, like, probably in the 3rd round. I wouldn't be surprised. And just, he ends up becoming like one of their very serious playmakers. It's just like, actually, speaking of which, really quickly, did you hear that Chase Claypool is going to the CFL?
I did see that. I saw that this morning. Actually, I was like,
have the mighty have fallen.
I saw some stat. The tweet I saw that with was something like he was 2-9 in his final 11 games. Like, oh.
That's a rough one. But other than him, they've had a pretty good track.
That is a baseball level curse on a player where it's just like, this man, like, wherever he goes, he just sucks. And it's just like with the vampire thing and the cross, just like, get away.
Yeah. But that's unfortunate. But other than him, like, they have a very good track record drafting receivers that, they end up drafting Roman Wilson. I could very much see him being a very big producer in that offense.
He just seems like a Steeler.
I like it. I like it for sure. Another fit that I like, actually, speaking about, our last episode where we talked about Stephon Diggs being traded to the Houston Texans. Now, Buffalo Bills have a hole now at the wide receiver position. We kind of went through their wide
trade
receiver
up.
room.
Speaking of how many receivers are going to go in the first round, I am telling you, I'm calling this right now. Bills are going to trade up into the top 15 for a receiver. I'm calling it right now.
See, I don't think they do that trade because I got another great solution for them where they have to stay right there at number 28. They can still land a very good wide receiver. But I mean, really quickly, I think just you look at that wide receiver room. They just signed Curtis Samuel. I mean, pretty good option, but nothing too exciing.
Solid number 2, 3.
Exactly. Khalil Shakir, a deep threat. Like, I mean, still a little bit of inconsistency.
Solid number
a little
4
bit more
5.
than that. We talked about Mac Hollins. I mean, not bad. Andy Isabella, KJ Hamler. I think they got a lot of good speed as well, but just haven't seen the consistent.
This is like when you start an ultimate team with the opener pack.
Exactly. It's very much an opener pack for sure. Yeah. But I think here, like you said, I don't think they need to trade up into the 15s to get this type of very good difference maker type of wide receiver. They can stay at 28. How about Ladd McConkey going to the Buffalo Bills at 28, being right there at the very bottom part of the first round? Like I said, I think based on the receivers that we brought up as being first round wide receivers, I think McConkey is going to go towards the bottom of the first round. I think just you look at his skill set where he's just absolute savant when it comes to route running. He's very good with his hands. He's a very intelligent type of player too. So it's like he's very good at recognizing where to sit in the zone, where to keep going, where to contest catches. I mean, he's a very smart player, and I think just he's going to pair really well with Josh Allen in that Buffalo offense. He's really going to be a chain mover. He could be a home run there if he needs to. He's got a good amount of speed as well on him. But I just think that he's the type of player that I think the Buffalo Bills sort of need as far as like a playmaker, because they got, like I said, the speed guy in Khalil Shakir. They got Curtis Samuels, like that all-around guy. They use him in runs as well, jet sweeps, and so he could be a sort of a slot chain mover sort of thing. But now you get a guy on the outside like Ladd McConkey who could sort of do everything and just do it really well for you. And based on, some of the interviews that I've seen, I think he's going to bring a good attitude, which is part of the reason why I think, like we discussed, why Stephon Diggs ended up getting traded, not just from Minnesota, but now from Buffalo as well. And so it's like, I think this is just a guy that I think could really fit into that culture, really mesh well with Josh Allen. And like I said, I think could still be there at number 28, surprisingly, and really give the Buffalo Bills a difference maker at the receiver position without having to trade up. So I like that fit for sure.
And that was a great fit. And it was funny because when I first saw that you made that pick, yes, we shared notes before this. I didn't like it, to be honest. But the more I thought about it, the reason I didn't like it was McConkey's not a true number 1 guy. In my eye,
that's fair.
He's a very, very solid option for a future number 2 guy. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, that was kind of the problem with Stephon Diggs, right? Like you said, with the locker room, is like McDermott's very, very good at adapting the gameplay or game plan to whatever the opponent is. That's a very good making of any head coach. But the problem is you got to deal with all these egos now. And Stephon Diggs is like, what do you mean I only get 3 targets this game? And it's just like, look, dude, we just need someone that we can count on to get us that first down and then just kind of sit there and shut up. And Diggs is not that guy. Not saying he should be that guy. More powers to Diggs. You are better than that. You should not be the just like, oh, we'll just dump it off to this guy. McConkey's a great utilization of that. And I'll be the first to admit, so feel free to call me out if this is a bad comparison. Not the perfect comparison, but he does remind me a lot of Cooper Kupp. And I may be doing be doing the vanilla bean thing there, but it's one of those things where it's just like you said, he's a very smart player. He's a very crisp route runner. It just seems like he's not the fastest guy on the field.
No,
he's not the most agile guy on the field. How is he getting open?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this when we were discussing, the running backs episode. We're talking about Jonathan Taylor, where you said the same exact things, but he finds a way to get it done.
Exactly.
And so it's just
it's the eye test.
Exactly. Now you just need to have that thing. You just need to have the intelligence that I think McConkey has that. So like you said, maybe he's not going to start as like that. Yes, he is a true number 1 option, but I think he has the talent and he has the skills that I think a lot of receivers still need to define. His are actually pretty polished up. That's like his chances to becoming a number 1 wide receiver. It's a lot shorter path compared to some of these other wide receivers. So that's why I think that just like him landing at Buffalo, that's a good situation for him. He's going to learn in a good offense for sure. And just like, like I said, they don't have to trade up to get him. I think it's just a good situation. Staying there at 28, they can stick it there.
So the other fit I have that I love is a guy that I'm pretty sure I mocked him as a Colts first rounder back in August. Unfortunately, had a year plagued by some bad drops. This man needs to work on his hands, but I still like him a lot. He showed me all those physical tools I liked about him back then. And I still think with the right coaching, he can still be good. And that is Johnny Wilson, the wide receiver out of
Johnny
Florida
Wilson.
State. I
Okay. All
still like
right.
this kid. His stock has plummeted,
It
unfortunately. Like
has. It has.
he went from a potential top 15 pick. Like this kid's gonna be lucky if he goes in the third.
Yeah.
But how about this for a fit? He's a big athletic receiver. I saw some YouTube comments saying like, "Oh, if he had some weight, he could be a tight end." Like
Yes,
that's how
that-
massive this guy is. I don't like that. I that's not his problem. His problem is not route running. His route running is not great, but that's not his problem. I still like him as a like kind of big third, borderline second tier option, physical receiver. Maybe not the best hands in the world, but just a big body you can depend on for the short yard. Well, hold on, second or third option, big body can depend on the short yards. Is there a team that's seeing that right now with a certain striped orange helmet?
He would be a good fit in Cincinnati. I could see that.
Johnny Wilson to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, from recent reports, is the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to give T. Higgins the trade he requested. And I highly doubt that Le'Veon Bell, God bless that man, he fell on the sword to see, hey, if this whole sit out year thing works. Did not work. Nope. So I don't think any NFL player is going to try that again for quite some time. I'm not going to say again ever, but I think for now, T. Higgins, I'm telling you exactly how this T. Higgins thing is going to play out. He's going to sit out for most of the preseason, and like week 4 of the preseason, week 3 of the preseason now, I guess, he's going to be like, fine, I'm coming back. And he's going to come back. So it's going to be Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Johnny Wilson. That's perfect for Johnny Wilson because he's a very raw prospect, but at the same time, all the physical promises there. He's this massive hulking guy who plays a lot like Tyler Boyd. That's not my comparison, but I'm just saying there are a lot of similarities to be found there where it's a very good possession type receiver who's also surprisingly fast. And so I think him with the Bengals in a situation where he can play behind Jamar Chase, behind T. Higgins, not put up with a lot of pressure, it's perfect. It's a match made in heaven, and they can get him in the 3rd or 4th round. They don't even have to trade up to go get him. And going all the way back, could you imagine? I am blanking on the running back. I mocked them. Who was it? Was Jonathan Brooks? It wasn't Jonathan Brooks.
Marshawn Lloyd.
Could you imagine they got Marshawn Lloyd and Johnny Wilson in the same draft?
I think it's easily done because it's like
it is easily, but that's my whole point. Is like that's a very realistic mock draft. I mean, oh my god, I'd be like the instant A+ in my book.
Those would be 2 solid additions for sure, especially like I saw a lot of good things out of the receiver that they drafted last year, Andre Yeshivas out of Princeton, right? So it's like I think maybe they keep him. They keep him as the 3rd, so obviously you pair him up with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and Johnny Wilson actually becomes the 4th guy because it's like they don't have a lot of good production for the tight end position anyway. So I think they could probably not use him as the like a tight end specifically, but if they keep him in line or keep him like as a slot receiver, I think that's probably where you can sort of see a little benefit there about him sort of being like he's got some good speed, he can be a field stretcher, he's got good physical ability, so I mean he can be a little bit overpowering as well for sure. But I think just the big thing is just there's a lot of development that needs to happen with him, and just I think landing in a situation like Cincinnati, where just like there's already some proven receivers there, I think for him to just sort of sit and develop behind those guys, that's a good landing spot for it for sure. So yeah, him landing in Cincinnati, I like it. I like it quite a bit.
That's a great point. I was so excited. I had to give them a tour of my apartment.
So I'm going to get into my second pick here as far as a good fit. I'm going to go with the guy that I brought up in our last episode of Small Schools Prospect. I'm going to go with Malachi Corley. I think he lands with the New Orleans Saints. So the New Orleans Saints
can't double dip with a guy.
Sorry, I had to because I feel like this fit would just fit so nicely for them. So they have the number 45 overall pick in the 2nd round. I think that Corley would just be a very good option to line up opposite of Chris Olave because, I mean, the Saints released Michael Thomas. I think he's a June 1st designation release. So, I mean, technically he's still on the team, but he's not going to be on the team. But even if he was still there, Tad, I mean, just he's not the same receiver that he was in 2019, where he set the single season reception record. It was just the awesome receiver that we saw. Just the injuries have just, plagued his career, unfortunately. We'll see whether he can bounce back when he lands with some other team, but I just don't see it happening. So even if he's stuck with the Saints, it just wasn't going to happen there. Other than Olave, the Saints have a lot of speed guys. So I think they need somebody who could be more like that run after catch guy, be that possession type of receiver to move them down the field that way. So I mean, it's like they got Rashid Shaheed, who's a speed guy, and they just signed Cedric Wilson Jr. for the Miami Dolphins as another speed guy. So you paired them up with Chris Olave. That's a good trio there, but you still need a guy that you can depend on to sort of move the chains, take a small gain into a large gain, especially when you got a quarterback like Derek Carr, Carr. Like, I mean, he's sort of a more like, he's looking for the simple passes every so often. He can air it out. You look at this type of receiver, Malachi Corley, where it's like he could take a 5-yard reception and make it a 25-yard reception. He could take a screen pass and make it a 30-yard reception. So it's like, this is a type of receiver that could fit well in the Saints offense, especially like, giving Derek Carr an option that's, get the short gains that turn into longer gains. And then every so often you go for those deeper shots of Chris Olave, those deeper slants, and maybe even Rashid Shaheed and Cedric Wilson Jr. on some of those deep home run shots there. So that's why, like I said, it's a double dipping. 100% it is. But like I said, I just felt the fit was just so good that I kind of had to say that here.
No, I think he's a great pick because I mentioned this on the last episode where Malachi Corley, he's 5'11". I made those notes before his combine measurement, so I'm not sure.
No, he came in at 5'11", yeah.
Okay, so he's 5'11", but he plays like he's 5 inches taller.
It's true.
Like you look at him, and you're like, oh yeah, another speedster, but he plays like a much like kind of a possession type receiver. So he is an interesting mix to throw in there. Yeah. I use the word throw very much on purpose because that's my bigger concern is who is throwing him the ball? Because God, Derek Carr is just terrible.
He is terrible, but like I said, I think in just sort of a shorter passing offense where he's just looking for the completion, and that's something that Malachi Corley can do. I think exactly. So I think that's why, like I said, I did double dip from our last episode, but I think because the fit is just so good and they don't have to make any sort of moves up or like, have a chance of missing this guy. Like I said, I think Corley can be there in the second round for them, where they have to stay at 45 and they can land this guy here. And then in the first round, they can address, offensive line, they can go defense, whatever it is. They don't need to invest a first round pick on a receiver where they can get a guy who fits their offense better and they can get him at the second round on day 2.
Can I just say that is the cheeriest I've ever heard someone go, yeah, he is terrible.
I mean, we've talked about Derek Carr so many times about just like, our good friend Alfred Rowe is just a big proponent about why is Derek Carr still in the league. I've never met a
man who hates another man so much in my life.
It is pretty insane. But yeah, he was just like, why does he get his chance to sort of pick where he wants to go? And why did he get this back contract? And, all the points he made are valid, but I mean, that's unfortunately just how the NFL works. Like he was able to get his opportunities there. But I mean, yeah, I think Derek Carr had a chance to be a lot better of a quarterback, but just unfortunately I think too much time has passed now, and just like his limited offense is there in Oakland and then Las Vegas, obviously, and just, stunted his career a little bit there. So just like, he's never going to become that guy that we once thought he was coming out of Fresno State, and very similar to his brother, unfortunately. So
Lee Harvey Oswald hated JFK less than Al hates Derek Carr.
That is not an extreme either. That is probably accurate. That is probably pretty accurate. All right, Ted, let's close out our episode by just, adding in some other guys that we either love or hate that, I swear this is not a double dip on this side. So just who's another guy that we haven't brought up already that you want to talk about in this section, either that you love or that you hate through the process here?
Ricky Pearsall.
I'm a fan of his. I'm a fan of his as well.
Well, this is a video to him. Do not get Ricky Pearsall. I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, as a guy who could give a shit about Florida, who didn't know anything much about Florida other than they threw that LSU guy's shoe, which was just downright hilarious. I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I am so, so sorry. Because if you had anywhere near competent quarterback play, you'd be locked in as a second rounder. My God, I don't know. I didn't even bother to look it up. Number 15 at quarterback in Florida. I know they got some transfers, so that guy's probably done. Thank God. Because if this man had a good, not even good, just a halfway competent quarterback, his stats would have been insane. Pearsall's amazing. He's 6'1", roughly 185. His weight's been a little bit of a question here. And he is just the most one of the more explosive players I had not discovered yet. Like the second I found him, I'm like, oh my God, when they get you the ball, and here's the reason for our viewers and listeners who don't know why I'm making that joke of like, sorry about your quarterback play. There were so many plays where it's like, if you didn't overthrow the ball by about 5 yards, that screen would have gone for about 60.
No, and I saw this very similarly when I was watching Texas when Quinn Ewers wasn't playing and they had some backup quarterback in there. There's a lot of chances that both Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell could have made so many bigger plays, but just the quarterback, just inconsistent, shorting throws, throwing him into traffic where it was easily going to get blocked. So it's like, yeah, I 100% agree with you. That just like quarterback play makes a huge difference for sure.
And by the way, funny little subplot with this is Pearsall is actually a transfer to Florida from Arizona State. So
Okay.
Herm Edwards broke every rule book, like every rule in the book, but clearly he did a good job doing it because he got Jaden Daniels, Pearsall. Like this man essentially recruited an NFL offense to Arizona State. He just broke every rule that is in existence. But bottom line is being Pearsall, the way I was watching him, and it was basically imagine a faster Danny Amendola. This guy is super shifty.
Okay.
He is insanely fast. He ran a 4.41 40 at the combine. And it's funny. So I was reading a couple scouting reports on him after I watched this because I loved him. I'm like, what's wrong with him? Like there has to be something wrong with him. And sure, he needs to refine his his route running and stuff like that. He's not the most focused player in the world, but he has very sure hands. There was a play, I believe it was against LSU, where shocker, bad throw.
One-handed catch.
It was not another one-handed catch, but it was a floater. It was a Sam Hartman throw that came at him, and he jumped up and grabbed it in his chest, and this LSU defender flattened him. And I mean flattened him. I'm like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
I was like, I just watched a man die. And he just popped right back up. I'm like, okay, I love you. But it's so funny because it's just the amount of effort and shiftiness he shows is so fantastic. But anyway, I was reading a couple of scouting reports about him, and the NFL.com one, I love this so much as a negative, says his big plays were only in uncontested zone coverage.
Interesting. Okay.
You're telling me he only made big plays when the offense worked to put him in open space. How exactly is that negative? Oh, you put this really fast motherfucker in open space. He's going to make plays, but that's really only it. Works for me, man. That's a job for the court. That is why we pay these coordinators and head coaches millions and millions of dollars, is to get this really fast guy into open space. And when he does it, he makes the most of it. And my God, he really does make the most of it. I feel like watching him, because at first I had Kadarius Toney concerns. And I think the Florida connection was playing a little bit of a role there.
Yeah, makes sense.
The more I watched him, it was different. Kadarius Toney, you could tell, didn't have very good field vision, didn't have very good shiftiness. He was like, hey, I'm faster. I hit that sideline, see ya. And obviously that's not going to work in the NFL, and we've seen that. With Pearsall, you see kind of that shiftiness, that understanding of this is the best way to go. This is the best way to go. He is absolutely great. Some team is going to get him. I think, God help us if he goes to any of these three teams. This would be amazing. If he goes to the Chiefs. Right?
Yeah.
How about this? If he goes to the Dolphins.
I feel like he doesn't have the speed to be in the Dolphins offense, but I mean, he's still be a dynamic player.
He has that kind of vision and that shifty. Raheem Mostert, I know he's fast. I'm not saying this, but Raheem Mostert's not the fastest guy on the field. And we just saw him have a career year with Miami.
That's true.
Because of his vision, right? Now, this is the one that's truly interesting. Cooper Kupp's getting up there. What if he went to the Los Angeles Rams?
Los Angeles Rams, that'd be
interesting. That could be very interesting.
That'd be very interesting for sure. But no, 100%. Like I remember watching him at the combine, and they showed the highlight film of him making the one-handed grab with his opposite hand. That was the big thing. That was such a big deal with Ricky Pearsall. But I mean, just like he shows the intelligence as well, good route running too. So I mean, there's a lot to like about him. You're saying not a second rounder? I think he could slip into the second round. I think he has that type of talent.
What I'm saying is, if he had a good quarterback, he'd be locked in at this point. Like there was no discussion about it. Of like, no, this guy's going to be a second rounder. And just because his quarterback was so shitty. His stats, they didn't take a dive. His stats are still pretty good. But at the same time, like if he just had a capable quarterback, this guy would be, among there with the Xavier Worthy types.
No, I got you. One guy that I want to bring up as far as that I'm very high on as well, and that's Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina. Yeah. Tad, if you haven't watched film of him yet, watch the tape of him against Mississippi State and thank me later. Because, I mean, dear Lord, did this guy put on a show against Mississippi State. A guy of his size should not be as fast as he is. He's very much in the same make and build as A.J. Brown. But here's the crazier thing. So I had to look up the numbers to compare his combine stats with A.J. Brown's combine stats. So here's the thing. 4.39 40-yard dash compared to A.J. Brown's 4.49 40-yard dash. They're the same make and build. Remember this now. 40-inch compared vertical leap compared to A.J. Brown's 36.5 vertical leap.
He jumped 4 inches more than A.J. Brown.
Then you also got the broad jump. He jumped 10 feet 6 inches compared to A.J. Brown's 10 feet. Like, this guy is a physical freak. And like I said, ran a 4.39 42. What's that?
If my math checks out, that's half a foot.
Exactly. But I mean, like I said, everything that you like about AJ Brown, this guy seems to have put up a little bit better numbers than AJ Brown. And when you're watching the tape, you can sort of see that. Like I said, there's just so many times where it's just like you see this guy just like he should not be this fast, but he's playing at such a fast speed. And then obviously he had that number at the combine. But you also see the other things that a receiver that you, for a gifted receiver, you see those things as well, where it's like, Spencer Rattler was quarterback, a little bit more capable compared to the Florida guy, whoever it was. But there were some times where the passes were not all on target. He was there airing them out. But because of those numbers that I just listed, he was climbing the ladder. Xavier Leggett, that is, obviously, and he is making these fantastic catches. He's contorting his body on the sideline to make some of these sensational catches. There's one in the very first game of the season against North Carolina, the Duke's Mayo opening game or whatever the hell it was called, but just he makes a great sideline catch in coverage on the sideline, gets a foot in, and just makes a sensational grab. So he's got that sort of willingness to sort of attack the ball, be aggressive towards it. He's only had 2 drops in his entire season in 2023. So I mean, this guy is like got strong hands. So I mean, he's got the ball, he's going to hang on to it. Just a very good wide receiver, very underrated wide receiver. So very much that you're talking about Ricky Pearsall, I think this is a guy that I think can slip into the 2nd or 3rd round, possibly. I think just, some of the intangibles that I think are not as great. Like, I mean, he's got good route running skills, but I think South Carolina only asked him to do certain things. So they used him on like jet sweeps, they used him on deep routes, they used him on comebacks. So they used him as a speed receiver, but I think he could develop more and develop like crossing routes and some slants. I think just once he gets to the next level, but you just don't see it as much on the South Carolina tape, but I think that potential is there. Also, the big thing that I saw is that a guy of his size surprisingly was not very willing to get to run block situations. So he was able to use his body to block some of the smaller defenders, but there are times where it's like he didn't get his hands locked onto a defender and he just slip out and he'd be able to make the tackle right on the ball carrier that's running right by him, sort of thing. So it's like, I think he just needs to be a little bit stronger hands, needs a better technique when he's going downfield, and he can be a lot more effective as a run blocker as well. And then here's the weird thing too, but I think this sort of corrected as the season went along. Like I said, very strong hands, but there are times where it just seemed like he wasn't very sure of himself. So there are a lot of times where he's like, I saw this a lot with Vernon Davis when he's entering the league. He was jumping to make catches when he didn't need to make to make catches. Exactly. So it's like, and then also on some of these deep passes, he's sort of letting the ball travel into his chest as opposed to going out and attacking it.
He's playing hero ball. He wants to like look flashy while he does it.
Exactly. So I think here's the big thing that just as the season went along, you didn't see that as much. So I think he probably learned from that. And I think he could sort of, alleviate those issues that we saw at the beginning of the season and be more of that guy that we saw towards the end of the season. But Xavier Leggett, man, I really like this tape. I'm a huge fan of his for sure. But like I said, there are some inconsistencies that I saw there on tape that probably is going to slide him into the bottom of the 2nd, possibly top of the 3rd. But just, yeah, there's a lot to like of him. So for sure, Xavier Leggett, he's one of the guys I just saw just like, this is a plus guy for me.
No, I like him a lot too. And as we're, as I'm cementing my top 10 wide receivers, which I will do either, I don't know, I'll say at this point, probably tomorrow before we drop on socials. He's one of those guys I want to put him in my top 10 so bad.
Yeah, like, I'm going to have a hard time keeping him off too. We'll see.
In my top 10. Where do I put him? Do I put him in number 8? I know. I gotta drop him in his shit. And you're just kind of sitting there like, man, and like he is good. And I do like it was funny you should say, AJ Brown, because it's not the perfect comparison, but the one to me it kind of reminded me of Alshon Jeffrey coming out of college.
Okay.
Maybe it's just my head connection with same college.
College, yeah, that's fair.
What's happening there, but yeah, bigger guy, more athletic than he should be, but just not quite perfect. That was always Alshon Jeffrey. Was like he was really good, but he was never quite that guy. Yeah, fair. So that's why he kind of reminded me of that. But no, I'm completely with you on basically everything you said, and it's one of those things where it's about, especially when it comes to 2nd round receivers, who can I develop? Is this guy just a freak athlete, or is he showing me good route running? Is he showing me, solid effort? Is he showing me all this stuff? I think that's where the NFL scouts tend to get a little lost. Is they just see a freak athlete. They're like, he's fast, draft him. Like there seems to be like some legacy of Al Davis left when it comes to wide receivers.
It's true.
And it's guys like, all the guys we've really talked about tonight where it's just like, no, there's promise there. And that's why you notice how we did not talk Xavier Worthy. Because I think Xavier Worthy is the best guy who busts this year.
I think so too. I agree with that.
So no, and there are so many other great wide receivers out there that it's going to be, now here's a more interesting question. How many receivers, this is quick math on our part, how many receivers by the end of the 2nd round?
By the end of the 2nd round? So like I said, I'm predicting maybe 6 in the 1st round.
I'm
maybe
saying
another
13. I'm going 13.
13 seems reasonable, but I think, at least double the number. So it's like I can see 6 and then 6 to 12. But yeah, I can see 13 or 14 for sure. I can see that happening for sure.
It's, you know what? I changed my mind from earlier in this episode. This is the deepest class.
At the position for sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, there's so much more that we wanted to get into when it comes to receivers, because like we talked about, this is a very deep position group in this year's draft class. And I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a receiver that you probably wanted to talk about, but unfortunately we didn't get into it. But guys, please remember that, even if we don't cover it on a podcast episode, you can hit us up on our social media handles. It's coming right across your screen there. Hit us up on Twitter. You got me at _23. You got 1010side84. Got the show handle at the Side Guys, and of course on Instagram at the Side Guys. If there's a guy you want us to scout, maybe we've already scouted him, we just didn't bring him up in the episode, or maybe we haven't even gotten to him yet, but just hit us up. Let us know who you want us to look at. We will look at tape for you, and we'll give you our instant analysis about a certain player, whether that's a wide receiver, offensive tackle. Hell, Ted even watches punters. So, I mean, if you want us to watch a punter for you,
Taylor, baby. Torrey Taylor's going to be legit. So I saw a mock draft with him going to the 49ers, and I would kill someone with that. But what happened to Wisnowski? Is he going into a contract here or something?
I don't think so, but that would be interesting.
Know,
but just, yeah.
49ers going.
If he needs to watch special teamers, we will do that as well. But I mean, guys,
I absolutely will.
We only will do that if you reach out to us. I mean, plays, guys, hit us up. We'll more than happy to look that up for you. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. Always up to date with our podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you're always up to date with our videos as well. And please, guys, make sure you're supporting our parent network at LAFB Network. They're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers at the NFL level, and the Bruins and the Trojans at the college level. Lots of great content coming from them. And please, guys, without them, there would be no us. So, I mean, yeah, we really have to thank them for all the support they've been giving us. And to everybody that's giving us support when it comes to listening to the podcast, watching the videos, interacting with us on social media. I mean, just anything and everything that you're doing, which is support the podcast. We really can't thank you enough.
Jim Irsay, look at me. Look at me, Jim.
He's too busy saving whales, man.
Shut up. How dare too soon? Too soon.
It's never too soon.
Oh, no, wait, it doesn't matter. Jim, Caitlin Clark, 7th round. Do it. It's the perfect PR stunt.
Oh my gosh.
Do it. It's the next Brock Purdy. I'm telling you right there. Anyway, that is a great type of draft analysis. Like Amir said, I love watching tape. I have been a little behind this year, admittedly, catching up on prospects, but I am just days away from my schedule opening wide open. So Amir's not lying. You have a kicker from Yale, I will track that man down and I will find his tape. I promise. I will do whatever I can. I love being the guy, be like, who the hell is this guy? Be like, I know. I'm that guy. So trust me. Give me a challenge. We love it. And plus, on top of all the draft analysis, we have more fun stuff coming your way. Some game shows, some trivia stuff, a lot more fun ideas coming. If not before the draft, then most definitely after. You guys try running a podcast in May. It's a little tough. So we have a lot more fun stuff coming your way. So keep tuning in, keep listening, keep watching. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and please stay safe.